So we've developed a pretty decent pedagogy around having students from engineering, nursing, and biology in the same class working on the same problems, but also the faculty working together. They
Mm.
all have different epistemologies. They've come through different habits of mind. And so those interchanges have been really fruitful for the faculty as well.
Hello and welcome to the Future podcast series by UIN. My name is Madeline Arkins, Project Officer and your host for today. In this episode, I chat with Patrice Ludwig, Interim Assistant Vice Provost for Research and Innovation at James Madison University. We'll discuss how JMU is reshaping internships through its transdisciplinary X Labs and a pioneering partnership with industry. From rethinking traditional career pathways to tackling the challenge of retaining talent locally, this episode offers a fresh perspective on how universities can create meaningful, future-ready experiences for their students. I have the pleasure of speaking with Patrice Ludwig today, all about shaping student pathways through engagement at James Madison University, JMU, in Virginia. Those of us who are lucky to join us in Amsterdam earlier this summer at UIN's annual conference may have come into contact with Patrice's work. That's certainly how I came to know this work, and for which Patrice won Best Presentation, it has to be said. So I'm really excited to get a little bit deeper into the details in our chat today. For the uninitiated, for the Philistines among us who don't know Patrice, Patrice is Interim Assistant Vice Provost for Research and Innovation at JMU. She is a leader in driving innovation and experiential learning at the intersection of academia and entrepreneurship. At JMU, she leads initiatives that bring together students, faculty, and industry partners through JMU X Labs, which we'll be hearing about more today, student awards initiatives, and research and industry-university research relationships. Thanks so much for joining us, Patrice.
I am so happy to be with you.
I'm glad to hear it. And Mr. Robert Morgan is present. Hello, Rob. How are you? A previous fireside chat speaker. Love to hear from them. Great. So, to kick us off, Patrice, and maybe give us a little personal grounding into the topic, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What inspired you personally to pursue this kind of intersection of academia, innovation, and engagement? And yeah, what are your motivations? I would love to hear them.
I think my motivation is at the heart of it is anything I'm doing ever working. And so when I was teaching, I started trying to figure out, does this actually work? Are students learning anything? And then in my research, same thing. Is anything I'm doing actually working? And then as I've tripped through, what I've noticed is I can't answer those questions by myself. I don't have the skill set and the knowledge base and the expertise. So I kept trying to find others to play with to help round out my understanding of, is any of this actually working? And that served me. Like in a research project I was working on oyster restoration. I was working with an architect to try and help me understand, like, how does all of this work? And that brought me at this intersection of industry where I was like, I'm a faculty member, but I actually have something that's commercializable. What does that mean? And that failed epically, but I learned so much in the process that I was like, oh, there's something here that students should be aware that this is a path, because I don't think that they were aware.
Mm.
So that kind of broadening awareness is the number one thing that was driving me in this intersection. The other thing is I have not taken a linear path through my career, which means probably other people aren't taking linear paths through their careers. So if we can demonstrate a breadth of opportunity for students to engage and they don't have to see themselves in a traditional path, then I think we keep them engaged a little bit longer. They can see themselves in their classes a little bit better. They understand why they might learn something in lit that applies in their STEM class. So they're making better connections. So that's the motivation. It's really student oriented. Like, how can you be the best version of yourself when you get out of college?
Student oriented and learning from epic failures, which
Yes.
I think is not spoken about enough. Love that. Maybe to get into the nitty gritty, because there is a lot of nitty gritty. This reimagined internship model at JMU, can you tell us about it? What makes it unique? How did it
Yeah.
come about?
So, a little bit about X Labs. It's our transdisciplinary space on campus, and it's discipline agnostic, meaning it is not located in an academic college. It's not in the libraries. It's actually located in research, economic development, and innovation, which opens the door for it doesn't feel competitive in that space. It feels wonderfully collaborative. It
Mm,
started in 2015, and we've been working through iterations of how all of this works. So we've developed a pretty decent pedagogy around having students from engineering, nursing, and biology in the same class working on the same problems, but also the faculty working together. They
mm,
all have different epistemologies. They've come through different habits of mind. And so those interchanges have been really fruitful for the faculty as well. So as we've moved through our time in X Labs, folks are like, oh, the students coming out of there have, let's just call them power skills. I would not call them soft skills anymore. They are really good at identifying what the actual problem is. And they're really good at getting to the heart of maybe that they value productive conflict. They're not scared of that. So we were noticing employers were, I don't know, they were like, oh, these students know what they're doing. They're now employees. They know what they're doing. And they were taking on leadership roles. So as we were trying to figure out sustainability models for them, it's expensive, it's boutique, it's all of the things. Imagine three professors in a room with, only 36 students in there. Like that's an
yes.
expensive model. So how do you sustain that? So we started saying, okay, well, industry's interested in this. How can we link up here? And the director now, her name is Connie Frigo. She connected with a global education tech company person. The company is Ellucian, and they co-developed, they sat in the room together and said, what would it look like for us to develop an internship model, a completely new model? The company wanted whole brain engineering. And so they knew that wasn't going to come from a single student, it needed to come from a team. So they were prepared to pull in a team of students, 10 students. We're like, okay, well, we'll get them ready for you. So we'll do a 15-week, a semester long design thinking prep class where the pedagogy, where we know what we're doing. You give us a problem statement and we'll help you jumpstart them. Then they're going to move into their paid internship as a cohort. So all 10 of them went together to develop the product the rest of the way. So that was crazy. Like they went from, as a summer intern, from idea to launch by August. So
Yeah.
June to August, which was amazing. So that prep course, though, gave them time to develop their team. They developed trust. They knew how they were operating. They had a cadence of work. They knew whose skill sets were going to be essential now. And they learned how to flip leadership like in an instant. So there was no, I'm the leader. No, I'm always a leader. No, I'm always a leader. So they
Mm,
knew how to pivot that leadership really beautifully. The company was brilliant in asking for an ethicist, a storyteller, UX, and then behind the scenes coding with like the straight up stuff and then the machine learning stuff. So they knew what they were asking for as well. And the beauty of it is that co-design part. So JMU, we handled all of the hiring, the recruiting and the hiring of those students. I will say hiring because they came in as students in the class. Now they were getting credit for that. Not in, I don't know about internationally, but in the US, that's really important that they're getting credit because their funding is tied to getting
mm.
credit for their major. So that was an essential part of this. And they can't take the classes if they're receiving any federal aid. They can't take classes that aren't toward their major.
Ah,
So that's an important nuance that people forget about sometimes. And we're a public institution, so we're thinking about that kind of a lot. So the students executed this class beautifully. They really embraced all of their roles, supported each other amazingly, and then got to their internship and just blew it out of the water. And then it was so successful. We ran it again and the company hired back everybody that would come from the first semester and then as interns and then had the next 10 in there. So over half of the interns at this company were JMU students, which is like amazing to think about. They went from like
yes.
none to having 20.
Yeah. What a testament to such a like condensed program.
Yes, but I do think there's something to having those different roles and understanding the different roles and respecting that, but also having time to build trust and know how to work together as a team. We spent a lot of time working on those kinds of things. So that was a focus.
I'm curious as you said, what the hiring process was like to initially get the students on board.
It was expedited, to say that generously. It was fast. So we came up with the idea, and I will say we, but I'm really meaning Connie and the Ellucian team. She is fully amazing at this. Came up with concept, wrote a job description, and had it launched in our university system where students go to look for jobs. It's called
Mm.
Handshake. And so saw it. We had, in just under 10 days of advertising, 72 applicants. And I swear that's because they did such a good job describing this new way of hiring a cohort of interns that would be working together. It attracted the non-lone wolves. So it
Mm.
attracted students that were curious about working in a team or felt more comfortable working in a team or were looking for that experience. That was important, I think. I don't have evidence for that other than I just have a sense. So we narrowed the pool down to 25, I think, and then ran interviews for 2 full days back to back, and then brought our top 12 to 15 to Ellucian, gave them their resumes and said, here's what we're thinking. And they made a few adjustments, and then we sent offers. It's important to know that the offers were for the class and to be hired as an intern. So that came out right away. So they
Okay.
knew what they were doing for the summer after this class, provided they got full engagement in the class and a C or above or something like that. So there were some parameters on that.
Do you want to be a part of a global community where universities, businesses, and public organizations come together to solve the world's biggest challenges? At UIIN, we equip our members with the skills, tools, and strategies they need to create impactful partnerships that drive real-world change. Whether it's upskilling your team, strengthening your institution's partnership efforts, or becoming more entrepreneurial, UIIN empowers you with the knowledge and support you need. Join us today. Visit uiin.org to find the best plan for your organization.
Okay. Wow. And so much, as you said, these were cross-disciplinary, both teams and professors. How have you seen the benefits of that? Is there any kind of examples that comes to mind of how that played out in a positive way?
In terms of the students benefiting from each other, they were learning. Let's just take the UX designers. They were listening to how the coders for the program were talking and then trying to not mimic that, but trying to bring to light what the coders were doing. So they were listening and said, okay, how do we represent that in the user experience so that this is straightforward? So they weren't necessarily learning each other's disciplines per se, but they were respecting the levers and barriers from each other's disciplines and trying to understand how to move that forward. From the professor's side, I would say we were lucky enough to have somebody from Ellucian join us every week in the classroom. So it was 3 hours in the classroom, and we had someone from Ellucian in there. We learned so much from her about some of the cadence, and I think she learned from us some of what you have to do to build trust among the team, to understand positionality, but how to shift positionality when necessary, and then how leadership works in those spaces. And what we learned from her is how to keep projects moving and some of the softwares that we hadn't seen before to keep students engaged and actually designing, not just at a whiteboard, but in C2. So that was really cool. But that's not that's that example. Those classes, when you have those transdisciplinary classes, I can tell you immediately how much I took from learning from my writing, rhetoric, and technical communication colleague. I learned so much, and I took it straight back to my biology practice and said, hey, kids, we're going to learn it this way. And so that changed their experience as well. So they're now prepared to think about storytelling in biology, which I don't know that I would have had that moment had I not had this experience.
I think the faculty experience in those cross-disciplinary teams is one that's not really touched on. It's all often, obviously, the focus is on students and the employers, but that added benefit that you academics, as we know, are often siloed, and that these experience can bring good for not just those two main stakeholders.
And we have to learn too, like we're trained to be solo. And so when you have to defer to somebody else's expertise in front of students
Yeah.
or say, that's not the way that I see this, like we are responsible for demonstrating our disciplinary representation, but also I don't agree with everything that person's saying. So how do you
Yeah.
do that in a productive way and then move forward? So I love those experiences for my personal and professional growth as well.
Wow, I didn't even consider that. Yeah, it's almost like teaching is a performance in and of itself, but being an interaction with different people and different perspectives is
Yeah,
challenges that even further.
I love it.
Speaking of challenges, because obviously there are so many successes in this program and out of this program, what maybe have been more of the significant challenges that you came across in aligning academic goals, industry needs, and how did you approach those?
One of the things I think would be pretty obvious to everyone is pace. So in industry, the pace can be so much faster than it is in higher education. So we are lucky that we're on the kind of fringe of the university that we can adjust that pacing. But I do think if anybody is talking to industry expectation setting about the capacity of we're dealing specifically with undergraduate students. So the capacities of undergraduate students, which are pretty high, but you still have to respect that. And then the pacing of the course itself isn't as fast as maybe industry sometimes. So that's one thing, kind of that barrier or that intersection. The other thing is none of this work for anybody is inexpensive. And so what is like the nitty-gritty of your relationship going to be, and how much time are each party putting in? And then how much does it cost to run something like this? So I hate to bring it back to that, but it is a consideration that I think people need to have when they're starting to think about this. The other thing is you need to work with people who a barrier would be having a vision and not letting go of it. So the types of people that are in the room have to be creative, have to be willing to say, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Let me adjust this. And actually, this is a hard boundary for us. We can't move past this. So that kind of thing. It's industry hiring 10 students at full intern wage as a
Yeah.
cohort. Who can do that? So one of the things that we're trying to figure out is how to almost do a co-op where multiple small businesses can get together with a problem that they would like to have solved, have the students all work together on teams, and then the students might go individually to their internship experience. So we're playing with those ideas. One last barrier that I do think it's important to say is that all of the faculty are teaching these as overloads, or we're pulling them out of their normal load. And that is a consideration that should not be taken lightly. So I say that there's nuances within every institution of how to make that actually work.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you mentioning that. Your point about involving like creative people who can build off of ideas sounds very similar to the tenets of improv. I've never been in an improv class, but like the yes and iteration.
Yes, we teach students that.
Oh, really? Oh, no
So
way.
one of the faculty members in the Aleutian class is an amazing improv actor. And so he teaches us improv and we use it all the time. Like
Oh my
it's
God.
essential.
Oh, that's so
Good,
cool.
good
That
pull.
seems like it was on purpose, but that just came to me in the moment.
Perfect.
Oh, very cool. I love that that's included. One point that I also wanted to talk about that I mentioned just before the call, I find very personally interesting coming from an area of Ireland that experiences even just the whole country of Ireland experiences a lot of brain drain, very difficult to retain people locally. And that's one of the real successes of JMU, is that you've really got 40% of alumni to stay locally. Can you tell us more about, how you see the role of universities in tackling this, and what have you seen to be effective to help students really see the value of staying put?
Yeah, so I will make sure that I'm honest in that our retention, I would say, is regionally within like 2 hours. And in Virginia, that's a reasonable retention space. So I will say that it's a systems level thing. In Virginia, that's a focus. And so that's on our brains for everything. Now, if I drill that down into JMU and what are we doing, it's something on my mind all the time. We're one of the more rural campuses in Virginia, so we're 2 hours from city centers. Agriculture is the surrounding area. So I'm always thinking about how to keep our young talent locally. And it is a systems level thing. Is there anything around for them to do? Number one, what opportunities do they see locally for them to engage? One of the things that we're trying to do systematically with our entire region is think about, can we attract offices from those city centers, from Washington, D.C., from Richmond, Virginia, to be here? It's close enough that you can get into the office 2 hours away if you need to go 2 days a week, but you could do your work here. So remote offices is one way that we've been thinking about that. That feeds into the internship space really well. Another is training local folks on how to have an intern and then keep them. And so there's a Virginia-wide program that was that second program in my talk. And that really does work on, okay, here's a small employer that doesn't really have time to think about all of the things that come with an intern. So the statewide program gives some resources for that, helps match to pay the intern enough so that they'll stay. And then once they get into that space, they tend to stay with that company. So that's big, and that keeps them local as well. So it's got to be a systems level approach where you've got opportunities for students to stay that they find attractive in all sorts of different ways through those satellite offices. Also, like students, is it amenable for students to start a business and stay here? Like what are we doing to help students see this as a potential for their own businesses that they're trying to launch? So that entrepreneurship ecosystem is also super important in keeping them around.
I love that you mentioned that employer readiness thing, because I think it's often put on the students. It's like, do you have what it takes to enter the workforce? Do you know what you're doing? And the reality is that humans are fallible. And as you say, there are many small businesses who have never done something like that before, and they too need training, lifelong learning, etc.
Yeah. They're trying to keep their own wheels on the bus. Like they could really use an intern, but not exactly sure like how to slot them in. Nobody's got time to train them, like all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and where to find them. So this program's been really helpful in our region.
Love it. One of the questions I had was about we've talked a lot about involving different faculty members in the program itself, and also how this is done on top of their typical teaching hours and formal work. What has been effective to engage other faculty in doing something like this? Because oftentimes it can be a hard sell. We know academics, professors are very overworked.
I think there's several factors. Number one, any faculty member, any student who has ever gone through one of these says it's transformative. So the word of mouth of that transformational experience sells it for a lot of people. But strategy is important here. So when you come into that space, can you use it to jumpstart your own personal research? Are the three of you or the four of you that are teaching together, do you have eyes on a research project or a federal grant or something that you want to go for? Because you're going to build trust in that time too. So you are doing the same thing that the students are doing, so that when you're ready to go for your project, maybe you've gotten some preliminary data, or you haven't, but you have the relationship to go forward. So linking it to your cross-disciplinary research is one way. The other thing is like JMU is super supportive of research on pedagogy, how students learn, all that kind of stuff. So I actually took some of my research time and brought research students as participants in the class. And then I was publishing in this transdisciplinary learning space. So that became my research. So I stacked it a little bit both ways. I had a grant to study bear collars with colleagues. And if just in case it ever gets famous, I wanted to call them bearables instead of bear. Still on the table. So like working on that kind of thing, but also like how are students silencing each other in teams because they're being too bossy or whatever. So like looking at network mapping, looking at network analysis. So I think there's ways that I was stacking functions. And I think that's probably the incentive that other than like serious major transformation. And it's so good for the students.
Yeah. Very clever. I wouldn't have thought to stack it in that way, but that's such a clever use of time and resources in the moment if this is already available to you in that space.
And we have to be clever. There's a lot of pressure. So
yeah,
the
you
way
gotta
that
be
it has to
resourceful.
go.
Maybe as a final question, Patrice, because we've flown through this, all these fireside chats always.
So fast.
I know, it's lightning fast. Is for universities who are looking to adopt a similar approach, who are maybe inspired by what you are doing at JMU, what is maybe step one into moving the needle towards more diverse student pathways for engagement locally?
I would say talk to as many people as you possibly can through the lens, because you're going to hear ideas and then just take a baby step, because baby steps become 2 baby steps, becomes 3 baby steps. So this is the space where I am all in favor of incremental changes and incremental innovations. Try something and then with that partner, and then be honest with each other.
Be honest with each other. Oh, that's a great one to end on, I think. Thank you, Patrice. I also just want to say, I think it's great to hear of programs that also endeavor to help pay and give credit to students for their internships, because that's a point which, I mean, also in Europe, I think that we tend to fail miserably at. And if we want to level the playing field in any way of access to really transformative internship experiences for students, I think that is such an important thing to offer. So it's great to hear it's happening.
And I'm happy to chat with anybody who I can take my LinkedIn and drop it in here. Anybody who wants to talk about this stuff. I love talking about it. I love brainstorming. I love like all of that kind of stuff. Happy to have those conversations.
Great. Thanks, Patrice. And thank you to everyone who joined us here. Patrice, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for joining us.
Ditto. And thanks everybody for coming.
Talk to you soon, I hope.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the discussion. Follow UIN on LinkedIn, and if you're enjoying our podcast, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on your podcast platform of choice to help others find this content too.